The full spiel, but we'll certainly give you the opportunity to tell us what you think. You know everybody on the commission now, and our job is to review the 27 districts and make any changes that we think are necessary to the boundaries, the areas, and the names of the various districts. And Section 17 of the Electoral Boundaries Act tells us what we're supposed to take into account, things like the charter and the number of electors that are registered and the population and geographical areas and communities of interest, municipal boundaries, and input from these public meetings. There's also a provision about guidelines or criteria proposed by resolution by the Legislative Assembly. Now, there aren't any of those at the moment, but there could be some coming from, say, this next sitting. And in addition, we're allowed to look at anything else that we consider relevant. And we're holding 14 public meetings across the island. This was to be, I think, number 6. So we still got a number to go. And we're supposed to pass our recommendations to the Speaker within 6 months, which would take us somewhere to the end of May, 1st of June. So it's important that the public would come and tell us what changes they think should be there, because for this time it's binding, not like the previous commissions where there's an opportunity to change it maybe, but this time, as the legislation stands now, what we recommend has to be accepted. I don't know whether you noticed when you come in, but there's, I guess you have them in your hand, the three maps. One is just the map as things currently are. The others are 2 maps we drew up among ourselves, really just to engage the public at these meetings, because John McQuaid, who had done the last commission, told me that when they went without a map, it was kind of hard to engage the public because there was really nothing to talk about or with. So there's not that we're in any way married to or have adopted either one of those maps, but we hoped that they would get people talking, and the final map probably will be quite different from either one of those maps. The Commission, of course, has no authority to add more districts or take away any, so 27 is what we got, and that's what we'll end up with. But that also means that when you change the boundaries in one, you've got sort of a domino effect, and you've got to change a lot. And those changes will be necessary because we got approximately 100,000 voters, and that would, if all the districts were equal, that would mean each one would have about 3,700. And that's important because we have our discretion is limited in 2 ways. First, by the charter, which stresses the importance of equality of voting power, but also that you take into account countervailing factors like community history and geography and communities of interest, that sort of thing. But deviations from the average have to be justified. And then you got the Electoral Boundaries Act itself says that no district can be above or below by more than 25%. And at the present time, we have 3 that fall into that category. So they're illegal under the present act. And we have 5 more that are over 20%, 4 more are 15%, and 1 more is over 10. So that means that you could we have about 13 districts that could either be considered too big or too small. And of course, we have to keep in mind what the court said about Section 3 is that the only variances that from average that are allowed are those that can be justified in the name of more effective representation. That's the overall goal, more effective representation, but you have to take into factors in doing that things like geography, municipal boundaries, population growth and decline, and community history, community interests, group identity, and any minority language or cultural representation. And that was a big topic of concern up in Evangeline last night. So numbers are important in the electoral boundaries work, but establishing electoral boundaries is not simply a numbers exercise. There's more to it than that. At the end of the day, we're trying to provide effective representation, and that may, in some cases, justify departure from strict parity. So that's sort of my opening statement that I've been giving over and over, and my friends here have had to listen to over and over. But we'd be glad to hear from you of your any questions or representations or submissions that you'd like to make to us for your area of the country, well, or any other area.
I was planning on saying nothing this evening, but
yes, just, and all these proceedings, by the way, are being recorded and for the record, and they can be accessed on our website. And just before you begin, you might give your name into the
Darlene
mic.
Compton, MLA for Belfast Murray River. I wasn't planning on saying anything this evening. I was going to leave it to everyone else, but it's just me. You know, the maps are interesting. You know, I guess anything I say is going to be self-serving, so I'll temper what I'm saying, I guess. You know, size is definitely a concern, you know, and it's what I'm hearing from my constituents as well. They were interested in the maps that were online and exactly where the boundaries were and how much bigger that would make the district. I mean, we all know that there was a lot of changes made the last time round, and some of them were good and some of them maybe not so good. In District 4, if you look at communities of interest, Murray River, Murray Harbour doesn't really have much of a community of interest with Belfast, and that's been brought to my attention a number of times. You know, one of my most devoted workers the last election said, I haven't been to Belfast for 15 years. So just because, yeah, so, and I mean, right now I've got a pretty good, you know, group of volunteers, and so I'm speaking as the MLA, you know, and people are working together, but people from Belfast don't really go to Murray River or Murray Harbour unless they're going to the rink or to Burhose in the summer, and there's no Burhose anymore, it's Harbourview, but, and people from Murray River, Murray Harbour don't necessarily go to Belfast unless they're going to the rink. They don't drive through it to go to Charlottetown. You know, we don't drive through Murray River, Murray Harbour to go to Montague. So, you know, that has been brought up to me a number of times. You know, as my district, it works fine, but if we're looking at communities of interest.
So would they see themselves more aligned with?
Well, yeah, the old district would be Murray River, Murray Harbour, Cambridge, Sturgeon, you know, Lower Montague, you know, that way. Yes. That was kind of the old district, and the old Belfast area district started at Wood Islands and went to Hazelbrook, you know, so, and, you know, so are we going back to what we had?
Going back to the future.
Yeah, back to the future. So, and then when you look at the proposal where there is one here where I would lose half of the district, or, you know, District 4 would change, half of it would be in with District 3 is what I see, which is kind of the old district, and I would gain towards Orwell, but then also into District 3 and into District 2 and into District 5. So it's, I think they're bringing it up there now. It's pretty big.
Yeah.
So, you know, and, you know, I understand the numbers. There's not much more we can say about that until we get our big plan in place for Belfast. Once we get a moratorium on closing our school, you know, we're working on that as a community. So, you know, and I say it kind of tongue in cheek, but definitely we need to attract some young people to.
You're talking about the land.
Well, that's just one part of, I was just sharing that I'm on the board for the Historical Society, and one of the board member, well, she's actually just a member now, not a board member, but she had, her background is planning, and she has, I call it a vision, and it's a fairly big vision for the community, which we're just working through right now because we're still dealing with the schools, but it's about how we attract people and, looking at creative economy and just a lot of different things, and also branding Belfast as Selkirk's settlement, which is what it is. And it's through the Historical Society lens. And one of the terms that Selkirk used was Big Belfast. So we're wondering about how we can recreate our community or reinvent our community through that lens and use that brand. So the Development Corporation, I'm on that board too. That's the land idea, which is something we can do immediately. It's not going to cost government any money because we have the funds through the Development Corporation to do that. And Jim McKenney, who brought the idea forward, said we cannot underestimate the value of having the Trans-Canada Highway go through our community, and you can be in Stratford in 30 minutes or 35 minutes. So, and through this whole school process the other night, the last meeting in Morel, I brought up to one of the panel members afterwards, I said we'd be quite happy to take some of those students from Stratford to Belfast, and they still would be on the bus a shorter amount of time, even if they collected them in Stratford and directly drove them to Belfast. I mean, some of the children in Belfast are going to be on the bus for up to an hour and a half each way. So, the road goes both ways. So it's, again, that, not underestimating the value of the Trans-Canada Highway and having an all-weather highway come to our community. So anyway, I'm getting off topic, but, we're no different than any other rural community. We have challenges with population.
What were you saying? What is the Development Corporation you're talking about? Is that a local one in Belfast?
So in Belfast, we're an amalgamated municipality. We incorporated back in 1972. Belfast Consolidated School opened in 1968. So within 4 years, the community decided, they saw the importance of becoming a municipality. So we are a municipality, and which is fairly timely because we just had the Municipalities Act on the floor of the legislature in the fall, which was went to third reading, and with closing our school would take all of the children outside of our municipality to send them to school somewhere else, which would be here or Divern River. So in the municipality, we have 2 development corporations. One is in Wood Islands, one is at Belfast, and we operate the golf course, the pool, and we took over the provincial park, and we run that now as well. So that's, those are under the umbrella of the Development Corporation. So, and a lot of people do look to us for, ideas or solutions. We're just starting to work with the CIC, our community, board, to figure out how we can move forward with any ideas and incorporate the CIC and the Development Corporation and the Historical Society, well, both the Development Corporations, and work together to come up with or work under this umbrella plan that we've got. So anyway, that's off topic a little bit, but it speaks to rural communities and how important they are, and how we're all struggling. And what I keep saying to everyone in the community is, if we want our community to survive and strive to be better and grow the population, we need to take ownership. You can't, with the school issue, I keep saying, well, you can't expect government to do everything for you, and then when they take it away, be upset. So I don't know how we as a municipality take on more responsibility or more power for our school, for one thing, but also in the success of our community and how we do that. So anyway, that's kind of an aside, but looking at the district that I represent, it goes from Murray Harbour North, Murray River, Murray Harbour, Caledonia, and so if you start in Belfast, it's from the Newtown Road along the Trans-Canada to the Shore Road through Little Sands to Murray River, all of Murray Harbour, then up Peters Road through to Cambridge, so the Cambridge-Sturgeon line is where my district is now, and everything in between. And then if you follow Peters Road to Caledonia again, connect with the Murray Harbour Road and go to Newtown. So everything in there is part of the district now, which is, significant size. But again, communities of interest, definitely a challenge.
That's a challenge.
It is a challenge, But, if I look at the second choice there where, I would take on part of District 3 and part of District 5 and part of District 2, it's a lot of territory.
Yeah.
But, you have more concentrated population in Murray River, Murray Harbour, slightly more. But right now the district is, you can say poll 1 to 5 is the Belfast area, and poll 6 to 10 is the Murray River, Murray Harbour area. So it is kind of split. And that's what it was before, split. So, again.
They're two different communities.
Well, they kind of are,
I understand what you're saying.
It's been brought, it has been brought to my attention a number of times since I became elected, so.
Yeah, and in the same way that some people from Georgetown say, well, we got nothing to do with St. Peter's, it's the same sort of situation I think you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think most people from Belfast, if you're like on the Trans-Canada, you go to Charlottetown more than you go to Montague, really, and so even seeing people, I always say one of my constituency trips is to go to the Superstore in Montague because, you're going to see people from Murray River, Murray Harbour more probably than you're still going to see Belfasters, but, it's just part and parcel of your district and where you see people too. So anyway, I don't know.
Before you finish, I wonder what would your opinion be, if you don't mind giving it, as to whether or not it's more difficult to be a rural MLA as opposed to an urban MLA.
Well, I think if you look at the socio-economic situation of the district, it tells you whether it's more difficult. And I mean, depending on where you are in Charlottetown, some districts are a challenge too, because if the constituency tends to be a poorer constituency, you have more calls and you have more issues to deal with, basically. I would have to say, that's a blanket statement, but basically is true. So as far as rural area, depending on where you are, and how well they're doing. But definitely rural has, I think, more challenges. One thing is paving and plowing, through Jim Kenny's study, he found out in the Belfast district alone, we have 139 kilometers of paved highway, a road. And, as an MLA, this year I got 2.5 kilometers of recap. So do the math and figure out, and that's just the Belfast part of the district. So, there are challenges there. Challenges with plowing too now, because we have government plows and contracted plows, and Peters Road that we just drove on is a great example of comparing the two, because one end is government plow and the other end is contracted, and I can guarantee you I know which one I get calls on all the time, and it's the contracted plow, and I mean, that's just, it's definitely minor, but it's what you deal with. So depending on I guess the economy of the district, that would determine, but, when I look at the proposed plan of taking on some of District 3 and District 5 and District 2, that's a huge geographic area to take all of that on, plus, what I have now in existing District 4, like the Belfast area. So that would be a challenge, if you're trying to get from Panett, where I live, to, I think Somerville would be the farthest end of the boundary, going one way. But
one person at one of these meetings talked about, in their district, might have been District 2, that they have 3 or 4, I think they said, telephone exchanges. Is that an issue in your district?
Well, there's 2 right now,
Okay.
659 and 962. So because
does anybody, if they have to call you in your district, have to call long distance?
No, it's not long distance.
So none of them are long
and
distance.
I mean, more and more, it's more cell phone.
More cell phone.
And Facebook and email, and calling my home phone is probably the least amount of calls would be to my home phone. But I mean, people get in touch with you so many ways nowadays. So, but I mean, everything I'm saying, in some ways, their challenges in the district, but in some ways I feel it's self-serving for me to be making these comments, but it gives you an idea of what I experience as the MLA, and yeah, I mean.
What about municipalities? So you've got Belfast as a municipality. Any others?
Murray River and Murray Harbour, both are villages, and they're incorporated. But they both just encompass the very center of the village. Like if you look at the village of Murray Harbour, if you get outside the village, coming into the village, if you're going to Burhose, the Matchin Point Road is on your left, just before you get into the village, just before you get to Burhose, half a kilometre. That's not in the municipality. So, 3 municipalities, but a lot of unincorporated area. So, and another part of, the big Belfast vision someone brought up, we've been hashing this back and forth, is one thing we would like to see if we're going to go through the Selkirk lens is see district, or lot 58, 59, 60, and 62 be all part of the municipality of Belfast. And this is just an idea, but if you look at the lots, they back up one against the other, and it would enlarge our municipality a little bit, and I don't know if that's something we can even do, but it's something we're thinking about asking for, maybe in the future, that we would grow our municipality a little bit, and then, which would go towards a little bit further than Wood Islands, that would take in lot 60, I think it's 60 or 60, 58, 59, 60, and 62. 62 would be, it would take in a little bit more of that end, and 58 would take in a little bit more of Orwell. And then also to ask for all of the children residing in those fringe areas that are part of the lots to be part of the Belfast district, school district. So, because both ends are in unincorporated areas. So, which, it's kind of down the road, but something we're putting on our list of ideas to come up with to grow our community. So yeah, I don't know. We do have 3 municipalities in the district. So, yeah.
With the situation you explained, the Belfast already having a municipality, is there any indication that there's an intent to enlarge that municipality?
Well, there is talk, and I know that there was some action or push from Murray Harbour, someone in the village council there to incorporate Murray River, Murray Harbour, Belfast, and all of the surrounding unincorporated areas.
Yes.
I don't know how you'd ever make that happen, and I wasn't involved in that at all. I just said, if you need any kind of help from me, I will, but those 3 municipalities, first of all, need to come to the table, and 2 of the 3 would, and the other one wouldn't. So I don't even know where you begin with that, and then how do you encourage the unincorporated areas to join this, and is it a good thing? What's going to happen? Their taxes are going to be, put up, and really, what's someone in Iris going to gain from, Iris might be part of Belfast, but someone on the Matchin Point Road going to gain from becoming incorporated and part of the municipality? I'm not sure.
So you've already identified that in your given constituency that there is not an issue with regards to people having to phone you long distance. If, shall we say, we move you into an area that, and again, only as a proposal, into the area that you sort of see on the other map, would that then cause a situation to prevail whereby a number of your constituents would have to dial the long distance to get a hold of you?
I don't believe any of that would be long distance. Vernon River would be 651 exchange is still, there's no charge. So, and I think it would be Vernon River, and even Montague to Belfast, there's no charge. So, yeah.
Someone has told me that the answer to the long distance issue in any event is to have the MLAs have a 1-800 number.
Oh. I guess that would work.
I was just talking about this with someone that came up. They said, well, why don't all the MLAs have a 1-800 number? I suppose that would solve the problem, maybe.
I think most of the MLAs already give out their cell phone number and advertise their cell phone number. I know on the Belfast Lions calendar, I have my Legislative Assembly logo with my picture and my name and my office number in town and my cell phone number. I would use that before I'd ever give them my home number because I'm not home. So then long distance really doesn't apply, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't an MLA who brought this up, it was just one of the members of the
Yeah.
public.
But I think most members of the public could reach their MLA with a cell phone number. I'm guessing, I don't know, yeah.
Just in the urban areas, there'd be, take the city of Charlottetown. So there's a number of districts in the urban areas. We've heard that it's more difficult for MLAs to represent the rural areas because of the distance. You have to travel from point A to point B to represent your constituents. Do you have any comment on that?
Well, it is a challenge. I mean, if I leave home, it takes me 35 minutes to get to Murray Harbour North. That's one way. So, if you're going to go, and there's a hall there, so I go to events, and there's the Cambridge Hall, and go to a number of events there. And Murray River, there's a hall, and Murray Harbour, there's a hall. So, there are always events happening, fundraisers and church suppers and hall suppers. And so it does play into that. And I think the communities of interest, and I come back to that, it becomes a challenge if you're not in that area on a regular basis. For me, for instance, I will say, okay, I try to get to Murray River, Murray Harbour once a week just to, stop at the store and talk to people and maybe visit some constituents, if I can. But one of the MLAs said to me, I underestimated the value of driving through my district to get to Charlottetown, and this is, again, it's kind of self-serving, but it's definitely true, because if you're driving through your district, like today I had public accounts, and yesterday I had health and wellness, so you're going to be in Charlottetown, and if I leave, and I mean, you can't really solve that because you don't know where the MLAs are going to be from, but for myself, I leave home, and once I get to Newtown, I'm outside my district. So, the opportunity is not there to stop on your way unless you're going to divert yourself. Tomorrow I know I'm coming to Murray River, and I have to be in Charlottetown for a meeting too, so I know I have to figure that out. But I mean, that's just day-to-day life. But if you have the opportunity to travel through your district when you're going to Charlottetown, it's great. And again, I feel like I'm answering these questions as self-serving, but you asked me the question, and yeah. So, I think anything that makes it easier for the MLA to be accessible to their constituents is good, And, but having said that, I've got a good team, and I know that's something that'll come up for all the MLAs, once you did change the districts, you're going to change your volunteers, and there's going to be a lot of that, and that just comes with it, but I think my first comment was, be careful what you wish for, because it could come true, and I don't know what that is, but because when I look at, the district and the executive I've got and the people involved, we've got a good team, but there are good teams other places, so yeah. Anyway.
Okay.
One more. What we're hearing, and I'm not picking on you, but as you say, since
well,
you're the only one here, we're assuming if you don't have most of the answers, you probably got some. With the rural communities, we seem to be hearing over and over again that there's a major drain that's taking place. People are leaving the rural communities to move to the urban areas, either for the reason of properties are being sold or for no other reason than they're getting tired of cutting lawns and blowing snow, and they want to just get somewhere where that is taken care of for them. Is there any place in your constituency that has tried to prepare for that type of exit? In other words, that are building seniors residences or apartments or something that's allowing a little bit better style of living for the older people who want to get away from the responsibility of, shall we say, the farms or the fishery?
Well, the first thing I'll say is in Belfast, and I can speak to Belfast because we're in the school, the school threat or threat of closure. we took it upon ourselves as committees to form, as a committee to form subcommittees, and one of the subcommittees actually did a census, went every house in the Belfast School District to see how many school children were coming up the ranks, and we are actually growing, albeit slowly, but we are growing. This year we have 102 students, I think, in Belfast Consolidated. Back when I started in 1968, we had 336, I think, or 40.
How many?
340, maybe?
300.
Yeah. So, but in 5 years, we will be up to 117. So there is a bit of growth, so which is encouraging. And there are a number of families that are moving back, young families that have children and they want their children to experience what they did. In the Belfast area, we're very fortunate to have the Gillis Lodge. So we have a wonderful long-term care facility that right now is expanding, another 32 beds, but it will be a net of 19. So we'll have a total of right around 100, I guess, beds. And right now, we employ, I say we, I used to be the administrator there. The lodge employs, I think we're right around 106 employees, and we will grow to 130. So part of the talk of this vision we have is to try and find a way of doing some housing for Zoomers, people that no longer want to be in their home but aren't ready for the lodge, and the lodge is both nursing care and community care. So, but to try and find something in between, and whether there would be an interest through a developer or, anyway, we're just in the very early stages, but we do see a real need for that. And I can speak to that. My mother-in-law, her husband, my father-in-law died. She didn't drive a car. Within a month, she moved from her house in the country into Stratford because she couldn't be alone. And it was closer to some of her children. And then went to Andrews Stratford Community Care and lived in fear of getting sick and not being able to be at community care. So she came back to the Gillis Lodge. And there are a number of people who do that. They go from, I no longer want to look after my home, or I'm leaving it to my kids, or they're moving in, or I'm selling it. And they're not ready for a nursing home, but they move to Stratford because it's easy and there's a place there for them, where there's apartment building. And so if we could kind of bridge that gap, because we have a wonderful facility in the Gillis Lodge, 100 beds. So, and it has a wonderful reputation. So if we can kind of find that gap, and how do we fill it, so.
Well, one of the things that we're there we go. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
One of the things that we are doing, of course, is as we look at the various constituencies, we're trying to identify potential areas of growth, because that's a fairly important aspect, because as the chair has indicated tonight, this is an exercise that's being done, but it's being done for probably the next 3 elections. So it's not just being done for tomorrow. Right. So we sort of have to look ahead. So one of the areas that I'm interested in is any area of potential growth that we've got within the province, especially in the rural area.
Well, I'll be optimistic and say we will have growth. If we don't, we won't have a school, and we won't have a rink, and we won't have a Gillis Lodge. And I joked all summer about we're not going to have a ferry, and we're not going to have a school now, so we're not going to need pavement. So it won't matter how much recap I get. So I think that's all part and parcel, and it's really important. Again, if you want your community to survive, you're going to have to step up to the plate, and that's kind of the message that we're trying to push out to everyone, And the one thing I will say, that the positive that has come out of this threat of closure is the engagement of younger people who have young children. I mean, I'm sure some of you are on volunteer organizations where, we're the youngest, and everyone else is saying, what's going to happen with succession planning, and how are we going to continue this board if we have no one interested in coming on board? That I see possibly changing with this threat. It's the one positive that's coming out of it, because young people are realizing we're going to have to step up or we're not going to have a community. And they're doing it with the school, and they've talked about the CIC, and well, when do they meet, and how do you get on that, and or is there an election, and they really didn't know because they weren't paying attention. So I do see that as a positive, and I'm hoping that we can continue with the push to to grow and develop our community. And, so again, speaking more of the Belfast end because that's where I live, but I know it's a challenge for every rural community. How do we retain our young people, and or how do we encourage them to move back? So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much for being here tonight and especially sharing with us. Thank you.
Well, that wasn't my intent, but thank you for listening.
Yeah, I think it was a great presentation for a crowd of one.
It was much easier than public accounts today, so.
The sad part maybe is that you don't have any constituents to hear you how well you spoke tonight. They know you anyway.
If they were here, I wouldn't probably have said a word. I would just sat and listened.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again.
We'll see you again.
All right. Okay.
We've got 8 more?
Eight more, I think it is. Yeah.
And we've got tremendous conditions, everything's set up, and sound system works good.
Well, every time our crowds have been small, but we've learned something. We've gotten something from everyone, just like we did from you tonight. It was we gained information at everyone we've gone to, even.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to make a big difference. And the one thing I didn't say. One thing that we talked about in caucus, I'm not supposed to share what we talked about in caucus, outside of caucus, is whether Stratford and maybe District 5 should be at 3,800 with this decision, or whether they should be less than that, because we know those communities are going to grow.
Yeah.
And it's for 3 elections, right? So,
Yeah.
Whether they should be below the
Yeah, the growth issue is going to be
Yeah.
one we're going to have to give some major consideration to.
Yeah.
So.
And then, I don't know. We still want to have really good representation for rural communities, and
Yeah,
that's really
that's-
important. Regardless of numbers, it's still important. And I know that's not easy for you folks to decide, but how do you make that happen?
It's a bit of a conundrum, but
Well,
anyway,
yeah.
we'll have to solve it as best we
Yeah.
can.
Oh, just one more.
Yep.
One more thing. Currently, as it exists, you have some areas which are part rural, part urban. Give you an example. District 8 takes in Grand Tracadie, and it also takes in Hillsborough Village. District 9 is Stanhope and East Royalty. District 15 is Milton and West Royalty. And I think when you hit Summerside, it's very similar up there. You've got parts of
Five districts, I think, have a piece of Summerside.
5
Yeah.
districts have a piece of Summerside. So, any thoughts on the rural-urban districts, or?
That's a tough one. I understand. I think I understand why they did it, because you want that population. I think for the MLA, you're always wearing that rural-urban hat. I'm not, because I'm a rural district. But some of them are trying to walk that fine line. I'm representing a rural district, but I'm also representing an urban district. And is that the best way? Maybe it is, because then you look at all sides. But I think it does make it challenging. But it's come up a number of times through this whole school closure procedure. The rural-urban divide, and people are beating that drum, but I keep saying, all of Prince Edward Island is rural. If we think otherwise, we've got our head buried in the sand. But I'm from a rural district. It's all rural, as far as I'm concerned. But I can see the challenge, and I know District 5 went right into the Mason Road before, and was half of the Mason Road, or one side of the Mason Road. I'm not sure, how the MLA reconciles that in their day-to-day life, or what they speak about in the House, or what their stand is. I think it does make it maybe a little bit challenging for MLAs, because you really want to represent your district well, and if you're walking that line between, I've got some part of the city, but I've also got farmland and farmers. It does make it, I think, a bit challenging. I can't really say one way or the other if it should remain. I don't know. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, good, thanks.
Thank you. Well, I guess we'll adjourn for the evening.